And at 10, Dream Theory. Dream Theory. I'm sure some of you are even yelling at your screens already. Dream Theory, if you're somehow unaware, suggests that perhaps everything we've seen in the FNAF games has all just been a dream, similar to how FNAF 4 is in the mind of the crying child. This theory doesn't really have any legs now and was confirmed false by Scott using Ultimate Custom Night April Fool's temporary mechanics for Nightmare Freddy, where instead of jump scaring you, he instead woke you up from a nightmare for a few seconds. This theory started after Scott asked Matt Pat, among other FNAF theorists, why Toy Chica would be missing her beak. He did so by adding pictures to his website, FNAFworld.com, with these questions. This question was particularly harrowing, especially combined with 4 games, 1 story, and what is seen in shadows is typically misunderstood in the mind of a child, which gave us the idea that maybe the reason Toy Chica was missing her beak when she went on the attack in FNAF 2 was because the toy version of her in FNAF 4's minigames showed her having a beak on the ground, just a little cluster of pixels. This also worked with other things, but ultimately was forgotten after Ultimate Custom Night because it was wrong. And at 9, Glitch Trap Virus. The idea that Glitch Trap could possess multiple people started when... Actually, I'm not sure when it started really. But the concept of a glitch trap army is something that we've all been worried about since Matt Pat talked about it. And we've been worried about who could be possessed. But so far, all we know of is Vanny. And the corruption of William only being able to possess one person at a time seems to be the way the games are going. We don't hear about Tape Girl getting possessed while Jeremy was, only after, and we only end up getting possessed after Tape Girl. And even then, when we do, we don't see a glitch trap beside us anymore. Instead, he's a plushie. So the possibility of a glitch trap army just doesn't really seem to be there. At first, I thought the Cult of Afton was going to be a thing, but the more I looked at it, the more I realized it couldn't be. And while yes, William is possessing someone, we haven't seen evidence of someone being able to possess multiple things at once. So, where did we think the multiple victims thing was coming from? It seems pretty crazy to me now. And at 8, 2 souls. Another theory that sounds crazy to me is the idea that Golden Freddy was possessed by multiple souls. It doesn't seem logical. I see no evidence that actually indicates that Golden Freddy was possessed by 2 souls. Some say that the survival logbook is enough of a hint since it's dedicated to revealing Golden Freddy's name and there just seems to be 2 spirits possessing it, but that's just conjecture because it's a matter of opinion. Sure, the book could be possessed by 2 souls, but the more likely scenario is that it's just 1 soul. Why would one communicate through faded text and one through altering text on the page? And if that was the case, why would the spirit who is communicating through altering text be Crying Child when a majority of the letters in Cassidy's name are found through numbers that have been altered? Wouldn't Cassidy's ghost be the one trying to communicate their name? Plus, then who's the one asking what we remember if Cassidy is the one spelling their name? Or I guess asking Cassidy. I mean, they also had a party in the Happiest Day minigame, right? Well then, what other entity is trying to make them remember? And even if it was the Crying Child, that doesn't mean this translates to Golden Freddy. That just comes out of nowhere, at least logically speaking. Sure, it's one of the same spirits at least, but then wouldn't they have had this conversation before if they were in Golden Freddy? Wouldn't they have talked about it inside Golden Freddy? Exactly. And at 7, Survivor. William Afton always comes back, but honestly, that wasn't always the case. After FNAF 3, we thought that he was dead, at least until someone pulled the good old-fashioned screen brightening and saw William on the back of the final newspaper article in FNAF 3 where it talks about the Fazbear Frights fire. That's when we knew that William would be back again whenever the series continued. This wasn't the only time that we would theorize that Afton survived either, since in FNAF 6 we also got theories about William making it out of the final fire, since he was in front of the flames in the final scene, whereas other animatronics were behind or inside the fire. And this also turned out to be true, since in the Man in Room 1280 we learned that he made it out of the fire and was in the hospital, being kept alive by the soul of one of his victims, like supernatural life support. And in FNAF VR he was back as Sentient Code, which now makes us all believe that next time William bites the dust, he'll be back. I always come back. And at 6, Clara Afton. We know little about Mrs. Afton. We don't even know if there was a Mrs. Afton. We know that William probably had some form of woman in his life, assuming his kids are biological and not adopted, and we also know that William had some other female that he was pushing away, who was represented by Bellora's song. But we also have no idea who this original woman was, or if she's still alive. Maybe she died, maybe she left William. There have been plenty of rumors and ideas of how this situation is going on by different FNAF parody songs and animations, some of which involve car accidents or Mrs. Afton walking in on whatever William was doing, but none of these have ever been confirmed. So like, people are still treating them as fact even though they're literally just fan animations. There is no official name yet for Mrs. Afton. Some people though call her Clara because of The Immortal and the Restless, the soap opera from Sister Location, since there is a vampire in purple that people compared to William, which for some reason even meant that because, you know, William's name isn't Vlad, but Clara, oh yeah, that must be the mother's name. Yeah, that's not true. Clara Afton doesn't exist, at least yet. She has no canon name, alright? So stop calling her Clara Afton. I still see comments like this, and I feel like at this point it's only to troll me. Are you doing it to troll me? Are you doing it to make me mad? Because it's working. FNAF has already driven me insane. You don't need to do it more, okay? I'm already crazy. Halfway through into number 5, William Afton. Before Sister Location, we didn't have the name of William Afton. We didn't have a name for the most infamous serial killer in video games. Rather, we had a nickname, the Purple Guy. This name became synonymous with FNAF and this mysterious killer. It became so associated, in fact, that anytime someone wore purple in a video, we all flipped out. Until one fateful day where the great MatPat came to us suffering through the Silver Eyes novel to bring us a theory that shaped FNAF history. The name of the Purple Guy was not the phone guy, but rather William Afton. Since this name came from the books, a lot of people were quick to dismiss it, saying that they're not canon to the games, so we can't think that it's true. But then, lo and behold, we get one simple line in the Sister Location intro that confirmed this suspicion. Quote, "Those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton." Boom! With that one line, MatPat had another theory confirmed, and everyone who said the books weren't canon ate their words. And I love that. Getting close to the end in number 3, Crying Michael. Do I think that Michael is a robot version of Crying Child with fake memories that was programmed to believe he killed his younger brother? Not exactly, but this is still one of my finer theories and doesn't get contradicted by Crying Child also being the one you should not have killed, since this doesn't really involve any form of spirit. My theory was that Michael was only built after Crying Child died in an attempt to put him back together, like we see William say in his final moments, similar to how Charlie from the novel series was secretly a robot. The memories we see could easily be because there was a psychic friend Fredbear in the area, which could have been used for the camera memories, like how in the novels Henry used the tripod and camera to make memories for the Charlie bot. Yet this time, William made the memories of killing his younger brother so that this child wouldn't go to a Freddy's location due to guilt, so he wouldn't end up getting crushed by an animatronic or find out what his father was doing. This was supported by the majority of the logbook and really is the only thing that explains how Mike knows what the nightmare animatronics look like, since the only time those appear are in FNAF VR and FNAF 4. Which takes place in Crying Child's head. I still don't know how they showed up in FNAF VR though. Actually I do, I have a theory on that, go check it out. Penultimately, and in number 2, we play as Henry. Orville Elephant was actually the trigger for this theory, and it started because of one line of dialogue from Ultimate Custom Night. Quote, "He tried to release you, he tried to release us, but I'm not gonna let that happen. I will keep you here, I will hold you here, no matter how many times they burn us." That line is being spoken by the one you should not have killed, but yet draws parallels between when William was freed and when the rest of them were freed. The only times we've seen these animatronics attempted to be released was in FNAF 3's Fire, FNAF 6's Fire, and in the Happiest Day minigame. And this makes me think, but how? Since we know that the FNAF 6 Fire was started by Henry, which means that the FNAF 3 Fire was started by him too. But then the original 5 animatronics weren't at Fazbear Fright. They were released in the Happiest Day minigame. So if that's the case, how did Henry release them there? Notice Orville only identifies one person as having tried to release them. And if the one you should not have killed is in fact Cassidy, that means that she got released in that minigame, but is still released by this he. But to our understanding, in FNAF 3 we play as Mike. This in fact cannot be the case if this line is true, and makes sense given the Sister Location's secret ending, since Mike says "I'm going to come find you," and then it shows a burnt down Fazbear Fright, indicating that these two events happen at similar times. So after Fazbear Fright's fire, Mike had not found his dad yet, meaning that the one we had to play as in FNAF 3 is Henry, since he tried to release William and the missing kids. Finally, and at number 1, the name Jeremy. Now here's the theory that I mentioned at the top of the video that is absolutely bonkers. I'm sure it's not true, but it's fun to speculate nonetheless. What if the recurring name of Jeremy isn't a troll from Scott, but rather a clever detail that nobody's picked up on in the right way? We know that William was being kept alive thanks to the use of remnant injections at the beginning and then the spirit of a child who had possessed him to keep him alive so that he would suffer. What if that same concept, well, aside from, the dead kid, could be applied to Jeremy? Well, I mean, I guess not the dead kid, but like the dead, victim, since that is supposed to be the child who goes on to possess Bonnie. What if instead of possessing Bonnie, he also used Remnant to stay alive and went after William, or just continued on with his life until he saw William again when playtesting the Freddy Fazbear virtual experience. When he saw the man who originally tried to take his life, it definitely would have driven him crazy, causing him to cut his face off so the pain would stop. I mean, there are plenty of holes in this theory. I know that, but I'm sure that we could find explanations for those with a bit of research. I'm just spitballing off the top of my head here, but if we actually look into it, I'm sure that there's something we can do. There isn't much behind this right now, but if you wanted a more in-depth video, I could do it. Hopefully. In a 10666 custom night. In the good old days where all we figured was that we were a criminal stuck in purgatory, we thought that all of the secrets of FNAF could be unlocked using the game's custom night, where you'd set the characters to specific levels and see if you could make it through. However, one such suggestion, the 666 suggestion, was not in fact the case. By setting the latter 3 animatronics to level 6, it was rumored that the kitchen camera would be unlocked, and you'd have audio as well as visual this time around. But that turned out to simply just not be the case, because, well, if you look at the game files, there is no visual for the kitchen cam, meaning that no matter what, unless you added a version of it yourself, there would be no way to unlock that camera. And this wasn't the only time we'd end up getting trolled by FNAF 1's custom night, but more on that a whole kerfuffle later on. Fun fact, kerfuffle was what I named my first Club Penguin puffle. In at 9, Fazland. Way back in the day, a fake Twitter Scott Cawthon ended up releasing images about a new Fazland amusement park that was supposedly in the works around the time that FNAF 3 was coming out or being announced, or it was supposed to be the location of FNAF 3, one of those. However, this was obviously a hoax, and we never ended up getting a Fazbear Entertainment amusement park in real life or in a game, which, looking at the events of Security Breach, is probably a good thing, in all honesty. I think that this whole Fazland thing might have also been the inspiration behind the abandoned fan game Sinister Turmoil, or at least indirect inspiration, since that game was planned on taking place in a Fazbear themed amusement park as far as I can tell from the trailer. And I mean, we've also made videos about the subject, with our series about a real pizzeria, and then like the top 10 attractions we'd want to see at the FNAF amusement park. Those were fun. That one was Amanda's idea, actually. But either way, it's certainly something that was believable then, and honestly, still believable now. But if it gets announced again, I'm gonna be taking it with a grain of salt. In at 8, Chrome Freddy. A YouTuber named Jimpathy posted a video called FNAF 3 Chrome Freddy Animatronic Easter Egg, Secret Five Nights at Freddy 3's Easter Egg. That's a great title. The YouTuber found a mysterious animatronic called Chrome Freddy. The color of the animatronic is silver, gold, copper with like a darkish green, lime green, just green. And it has black eyes with white glowing pupils. Sure, it does look real, but there was 3 things that made this Chrome Freddy fake. Number 1, there was no light. Number 2, it had no shadow, and 3, it's endoskeleton. The endoskeleton had no black like tube pipes on it, and it was really the original Freddy Fazbear model from FNAF 1. And it had no endoskeleton jaw in its mouth, while Chrome Freddy did have one, okay? Chrome Freddy was 100% fake. No character exists in the game files for FNAF 3, and the video was just posted as a joke. Jimpathy made the video because he thought it was funny, not because he thought it was real or something like that. It's like the same thing when way back in college I claimed that I had a copy of Elder Scrolls 6 and made a fake game cover and to make a joke video and stuff, okay? It was just for fun, okay? And so is this Chrome Freddy video. I doubt he figured it would blow up as much as it did and that people would think that it's real. It seemed very sarcastic when I was watching it though. And it's 7, Helpful Foxy. The theory that Foxy was a good guy was really popular back in the day. Everyone thought for some reason that Foxy was actually trying to help you, since he just popped in his head instead of actually like getting all up in your face. However, this never really made sense to me, since the game still ends and then you still go to the game over screen. So I feel like that's kind of, you know, indicative of death. So I don't really understand however anyone thought that this was actually canon, but there was a small percentage of people who genuinely thought that this was true, and there were others who thought it was possible. However, Scott proved this all to be false again during the April Fool's update to Ultimate Custom Night, where he also added the Nightmare Freddy mechanics. Foxy's was based on this theory, where he would run in and instead of killing the player, he would block one of the doors. This was changed at some point later on, probably like a day later or something, but it was still funny and it was a great way to debunk this theory, even if it was like 5 games too late. Actually, it's more like 6 games too late, bro. The hell, Scott? You'll pump out a second game in 87 days, but not respond to this theory until like 6 games later. Alright. And at 6, Phone Guy. Ah, the original purple guy theory. The one that really started us on the path to dedicating way too much of our lives uncovering the hidden secrets. Oh, do you mean it was just MatPat and I? Great. In all seriousness though, this is the theory that got me to look closer at the Five Nights series. And if MatPat hadn't suggested that Phone Guy was the purple guy, I don't think that the FNAF would have been so big as it is now. This theory came from several ideas. One was that Phone Guy openly admits his love for Foxy, which we can see Purple Guy smiling at during the Foxy Go 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 minigame, even though he was probably just smiling at dead kids because you know that's what he's into. Phone Guy also admitted his distrust of the puppet, who we at the time assumed to be the first victim and the first animatronic with sentience, so it would always make sense as to why the Phone Guy would describe it as always thinking, because, you know, you killed it. The object in Purple Guy's hand also looked like a phone, but I mean, it was also 8-bit, so all of this made us think that the Phone Guy was the purple guy, but honestly, it just turned out to be a spring lock crank, which we didn't even know was a thing at that point, so you know what, that's fine. I have to say though, this is pretty crazy considering how that means that the serial killer would have already been dead and the games wouldn't have had a point. But also, because like, imagine how cut and dry the games would have been, if only. And at 4, the one you should not have killed. I've said this before in multiple videos, however I am certain that the one you should not have killed is in fact Crying Child rather than Cassidy, since Cassidy would have had to possess Golden Freddy, and as I stated earlier, we have not seen evidence of anyone possessing multiple animatronics, let alone a human and an animatronic at once. And with Crying Child dying in the hospital at the end of FNAF 4 with no animatronics around, I bet his agony would latch on to the thing he blamed for his death, his father. Because let's be honest, without William, Crying Child wouldn't have died. I mean, like, at least in the sense of like with William he was still born, but if William hadn't built the animatronics he wouldn't have died. Since, you know, he did make the animatronics with enough power to crush a human skull, because that was not a spring lock failure. There are no spring locks that can fail in the mouth because they've already been triggered, so them failing in that state would just be them opening, resulting in no damage. Plus the mouth would only need hydraulics, not spring locks, because no body part would be in the mouth if someone was inside the suit. Look, I know it goes against the norm. I understand that, but honestly, to me it has to be the case. It's only logical. Getting close to the end to number 3, Sparky the dog. In the early days of the game's lifespan, someone began to spread rumors about a hidden 6th animatronic named Sparky the dog. Sure enough, screenshots began to pop up on Tumblr, because you know Tumblr is the most trustworthy. Reportedly, Sparky the one-armed dog was non-violent and would never attack the player, only appearing occasionally in the backstage doorway. However, it was eventually revealed as a hoax by the creators, Tumblr users Kodaibear and Gwen, with all the screenshots obviously being photoshopped. Did you ever actually think that Sparky was real? I didn't even know that this was a thing at the time. At this point, my knowledge of FNAF was limited to what MatPat said, because I was terrified of anything horror related. Even the Eddie Brock becoming Venom scene in Spider-Man 3 was terrifying to little me. To be fair, my parents also wouldn't let me watch anything remotely scary, and as a kid I had a dream that a zombie popped his face up right next to my bed while I was sleeping, and then I ended up punching my side table. But yeah, I don't remember this. But it was a thing, it was a thing. But ultimately, in at number 2, 1987 ending. I feel terrible for the poor sucker who figured this one out first, alright? At the end of every FNAF game, there's a bonus night that gives you more lore clues and more scares, but after beating it, you unlock a 7th night where you can customize the animatronics and give them specific levels to see how hard you can make it through, like I was explaining with the 666 rumor. However, if you were to do this in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, you'd obviously be looking for more clues, trying to figure out what the hell is going on in the first place, which would later become an incredible series of games that were just even more confusing. But if you tried to solve this by being a little bit sneaky and inputting the animatronic levels to be 1987, the year of the infamous bite of 87, you end up getting instantly jump scared by Golden Freddy, which, while hilarious, is still creepy and unexpected, especially since everyone was saying that Scott intended this to be how he found out. So people were putting it in So Scott updated the game to make it jump scare you with Golden Freddy. I get that Scott wanted to shut the rumors down and stuff, but like, why couldn't it just have been a normal night? What if someone wanted to use those levels for no reason other than to see if they could actually make it, and then boom, they get spooked by Golden Freddy? It's kind of rude, but also that's probably one of the scariest jump scares if you don't expect it. Because like, I don't know, why wouldn't the game just actually load like every other level setting? And finally, in at number 1, the purple guy animatronic. The purple guy animatronic legend is an urban legend revolving around the 2014 Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Yeah, that's right, because they both came out in 2014. In early 2015, though, a YouTube video surfaced that reportedly showed a hidden animatronic, reported to be the purple guy, the main antagonist of the franchise, who would later come to be known as William Afton. The appearance of the purple animatronic was preceded by phone ringing, and then after the phone rang, the purple animatronic briefly flashed on screen, slumped against the wall of the office in a manner similar to Golden Freddy. However, it was soon revealed that the animatronic was simply a photoshopped image of Golden Freddy with a purple color scheme and then Toy Chica's head. And I think that it's pretty obvious that it was photoshopped. Like, I mean, we've used the image in a couple thumbnails, like every now and again, but no character actually ever like showed up in the game. If there was a purple guy animatronic, it wouldn't be reused assets either. Like, come on, people. I know it was 2015 and a 2014 game, but still, come on. In at 10, Puppet was first. The puppet's origins were first explored in FNAF 2. The Give Gifts minigame is what made us first imagine that the puppet was the one giving life to these animatronics. And we were right about that, but we also thought that the puppet was the one putting the bodies in the suits, and that the puppet was the first child murdered outside the pizzeria. However, now we know, thanks to the Ultimate Custom Night game, is that this isn't the case. In Ultimate Custom Night, all the FNAF animatronics get voice lines, making this the first time we've heard many of these animatronics talk. Nevertheless, in the game affectionately referred to as UCN, when killed by Chica, you can hear her say, "I was first, I have seen everything," indicating that she was indeed the first victim of William Afton, which kind of threw off the timeline and made everything more confusing, but that's Scott's specialty, isn't it? In a 9 timeline. The timeline of Five Nights at Freddy's is a complicated mistress with plenty of conflicting events and contradictory sentences throughout, but that's understandable. You can't keep track of 10 games worth of lore when you weren't planning on making 2. So understandably, things get confused and dates get mistaken, but that in essence means that every timeline you can think of, unless it takes into account all information and places it without any conflicts, is proven wrong. It's weird, I know, and that's basically me saying that MatPat's timeline is wrong, but hey, it's fine. We're getting new things on the regular, and it looks like Scott has abandoned that timeline anyway. Hell, it may totally be worthless, okay? Since apparently in universe the games were also created as a way to make fun of the events, so everything could be a lie now, if the games in universe are the same as the ones we played in the real world. And it ain't purple and pink. Way back in the FNAF 2 days, there was a debate over 2 different killers. However, this time they were the purple and the pink guy. The pink guy was present in the Foxy Go 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 minigame, and since he was a slightly lighter shade of purple, they were instantly different people, and then we had 2 killers to deal with, which technically would have been a settling thought since one person wouldn't have killed all those kids. However, this isn't the case, as proven in the Freddy Files, an elongated strategy guide created by Scott Cawthon himself. In it says that in the Foxy Go 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 minigame, quote, "Purple guy can be seen in the corner," which very quickly proves the pink guy stands wrong. I believe that this was a debate where people were like legit fighting over this, and then dismissing anything if it didn't mention that there was a pink guy and a purple guy. It's nuts, okay? It's good to have a fan base that's dedicated, but it can also lead to a very toxic environment. In its 7/2023 location. In our series of videos about how a real FNAF location could happen, it was capstoned with a video about the secret plan for a FNAF location. Secret plan. Where I proposed that perhaps in 2023 we'd end up getting a real, actual, like, FNAF pizzeria. This was solely based on the idea that FNAF 3 takes place in 2023, or at least currently that's what I still believe until we end up getting proof that it doesn't. However, it's time I come clean. That video was just an idea. It wasn't a theory. There was no actual evidence behind it. I merely suggested it because I'm a pathological liar and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. But really, it wasn't really a theory or something. Like, it's not something that I thought was going to happen, but it was certainly at least technically possible. I seriously still think that a pizzeria that would end up being creepy after like 9 p.m., like if like for adults after 9, would be incredibly cool and would make absolute bank. Like, I might have to do that with non-FNAF characters just because that's an awesome idea. And at 6, Tater the Waiter Gator. Tater the Waiter Gator was a fan-made character that was made just for fun. However, the fake Scott that also did the whole fake Fazland thing took the model to Twitter claiming that they were a new animatronic. This guy was a real menace back in the day, holy damn. And while it was indeed a joke, the appearance of an alligator face in the FNAF 3 Happiest Day minigame made people reconsider the canonicity of Tater the Waiter Gator. I love saying that. I love saying that. It's so good. Tater the Waiter Gator. Okay, but the thing is, he isn't and was never canon. And the alligator character got explained away with Montgomery Gator, who luckily is not a waiter. He's a golfer and apparently an assassin. We better get to solve the whole Monty killed Bonnie thing in the FNAF DLC, or so help me, I'm actually going to cry. Okay, I won't cry, but like I'll definitely be disappointed in the quality of FNAF DLCs that we get if this isn't a thing. There's a multiplayer mode mod, right? So you might as well add it officially so it isn't absolute garbage, in my opinion, right? Right? And at 4, Real Pizzeria. Before the release of FNAF 4, Scott Cawthon's website was littered with references to the numbers 8 and 7 in the source code. This caused many fans and even dear old MatPat to think that these were references to the year 1987, where the famous frontal lobe bite occurred, and even caused a whole lot of problems when the game was released. However, other fans believed these were coordinates, so after plugging them into Google Maps somehow, which I honestly don't understand how you would have done that, but like, whatever. I tried to put the numbers in and it just didn't work, so I don't know how they got to this, okay? But after putting them into Google Maps, they found the location that it was giving them, and it was an actual real-world pizzeria. Obviously, once this got shared, fans of the franchise started harassing the place trying to get answers. And while it was all one big coincidence, someone might have caught on before. Kathy Blockus reviewed the pizzeria, saying the robots kill people. I saw a robot fox killing a kid in there before. Run for your lives out there. This was 3 weeks before FNAF 4 was actually announced, which is when all the 8s and 7s appeared on the website. So while this is incriminating for the pizzeria, Kathy also left 5 stars on her review, so either they're into some really weird stuff or they're just a fan of the franchise. Hopefully they're a fan. And at 2, 83 versus 87. FNAF 4 is one of the weak points when it comes to discerning or decoding the FNAF timeline, which is nearly impossible at this point. This game has so much debate about who the characters are, where it takes place, and hell, even when it takes place. Yeah, people were legitimately arguing over if the game took place in 1983 or 1987. 87 would make sense, considering how we see a bite at the end of the game when the crying child dies, and then the only other time we've heard about a bite in game is the bite of 87, where someone gets their frontal lobe bitten off during business hours. However, the television screen showing the Fredbear and Friends cartoon says it's only 1983. This debate was put to rest when Scott confirmed the previous game's date and sister location. He likes to do this thing where he clears up some things from previous games on his next one, and the biggest debate from FNAF 4 was the year. So he showed us that it indeed took place in 1983 by using that number as a secret code that unlocked security cameras in sister location that showed the various places in the FNAF 4 house, like the crying child's bed, the closet in his room, and the plush trap hallway. Finally, in at number 1, Mic Trap. This has got to be my personal most frustrating debate in all of FNAF lore, okay? This debate also arose at the same time as the Purple Guy debate. They go hand in hand. At the end of Sister Location, the secret ending, Mike has a little speech about how he's supposed to be dead, but he isn't, and that he's going to find his father. The debate comes at the end of that scene, where Mike says that I'm going to come find you, and then Springtrap pops out of the ruins of Fazbear Fright. This caused some people to believe that the act of Springtrap popping out was Scott's way of saying that they're the same. However, it was only to show that dear old dad hasn't kicked the bucket, and that you unplugging his life support didn't do anything because he's being kept alive by the soul of one of his victims. The whole Mic Trap Club was disproven by Scott himself when he said in a post on Steam to take a look at MatPat's explanation for Mic Trap versus Glitch Trap, which is kinda dumb because you can just say that he's William, not Michael, but it's also kinda nice because you generated traffic for his video. I mean, wanna give us that same treatment, Scott? Please? MatPat also concluded that Springtrap was good old Willie Afton. And at 10, Lonely. This is pretty much confirmed to be incorrect at this point, but still kinda terrifying if you think about it. The theory that Fredbear plushies that follow you around in the 8-bit minigames of FNAF 4 being Lonely Freddy is damn creepy. At least if we assume that Lonely Freddy would be trying to take over Crying Child's body. If you didn't know, the Lonely Freddy dolls were introduced in the Fazbear Fright story called Lonely Freddy, where it steals the main character Alex's body, leaving his consciousness trapped inside the robot. Its entirely possible that it wasn't trying to do so to Crying Child, and that instead William created the Lonely Freddy to keep an eye on him, and took the whole wanna steal your body part out of the code. So the fact that this is a camera could confirm this theory as false, but the two don't have to be mutually exclusive. However, the presence of a plush in the sister location camera office, and it being a plush not a robot, is certainly damning to this theory. And at 9, one and the same. One theory I've seen plenty of times, and I'm pretty sure was mostly around the start of FNAF 4, was that Golden Freddy and Fredbear are the same animatronic, suggesting that the reason Golden Freddy is all limp in the original FNAF and FNAF 2 is because his endoskeleton was removed after the Crying Child's bite in 1983, and that's why the suit has to teleport around and cause hallucinations, because it can't physically move. This would also probably mean that Crying Child was the one in the Golden Freddy suit. However, we know this isn't true based on characters being separate in Ultimate Custom Night, so they are two different characters, Fredbear and Golden Freddy, and just coloring and size in general, since Golden Freddy is much smaller than Fredbear would be, since Fredbear would also have to accommodate a human and Golden Freddy wouldn't, since Golden Freddy is just an animatronic and not a springlock suit like Fredbear. At least we think he's a springlock suit, I'm pretty sure. And at 8, Death. Nightmare from FNAF 4 is in essence an inverted color scheme Fredbear. He serves as the game's primary or ultimate antagonist, and this theory goes that Nightmare is symbolic of death, since death is, after all, the ultimate fight for Crying Child, as he lay on his hospital bed, fighting for his life. Nightmare's design also features a visible brain, which you can see through his translucent head, which could also be symbolic of brain death, which we know is possible since the game is actively using Crying Child's brain, so it's possible that he could then be brain dead. In Ultimate Custom Night, we are also told by Nightmare that he is William's wickedness made of flesh, which only further enhances this theory, since it was William's creation that ultimately caused the Crying Child to get injured, and William is the one who pulls the plug on Crying Child after promising him that he will put him back together, whatever that means. It could also just be that Crying Child's brain is slowly getting less and less oxygen, causing his hallucinations to become stronger as he slowly dies. And at 7, the Man in Purple. Remember the dark days when we didn't really know anything about the purple guy other than he killed kids? Yeah, those were the times. And remember when we, thanks to MatPat, thought that the purple guy was Phone Guy? Oh yeah, those were dark days indeed. This theory started when YouTuber Game Theory, also known as MatPat, posted a video on his channel talking about one small detail that nobody seemed to notice. How the purple guy from Foxy Go 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 was smiling, and that the phone guy had a fascination with Foxy. And how the phone guy thought that the puppet was creepy, and purple guy would think the same thing, because at the time we believed he was his first victim. This was later disproved in the Silver Eyes when the killer was revealed to be one Sir William Afton. Obviously in the book he wasn't referred to as the purple guy, but at this point we had proven that there was only one killer. And in the story, Willie was the only killer. This was also confirmed to be the identity in the in-game universe in FNAF 5 sister locations. So, sorry Matt, but purple guy is indeed not the phone guy. I wanted it too, don't worry. And at 6, Michael Afton. We can't get the identity of Michael Afton down. At first we thought he was the Crying Child's older brother, then thanks to the survival logbook it was now the Crying Child, and now after that with the release of the 4th Fazbear Frights book Step Closer, it's the older brother again because Michael chews gum and the older brother in the story chews gum, and the older brother in the story had his hand turned purple, and Michael Afton turns purple, and they're both older brothers. Great. I personally think that the older brother and the Crying Child are both Michael Afton, and that he was just rebuilt as a robot. Click up in the top right corner to see my full explanation that I will believe until it gets disproven by Scott himself, be it in another Frights book or in a new game, okay? I want a canon source to say that I'm wrong, and then I'll stop believing it. Halfway through number 5, Mike is Purple Guy. There have been plenty of debates online once more pertaining to the identity of Purple Guy after the release of FNAF Sister Location. The confusion came after the end of Sister Location when Michael is walking around and turns purple. This caused a whole load of people to consider the two individuals the same person, even though those same people thought that since they were slightly different shades of purple, there was a purple and pink guy. These two are also different shades, but now they're the same person? What? Anyway, the real answer here is just that the purple guy is just a shadow. He's not physically purple like Michael is. William's purple guy is a shadow that couldn't be colored black because the background of FNAF 2's minigames was black, so the shadow was instead colored purple. The purple guy is William Afton, but Michael Afton became visually purple, okay? There were two purple guys, but only one that is like actually purple. You get it? This game is not confusing at all. And at 4, William is dead. We always thought that William was dead. This guy has died more times than Sarah Lance, but as we all know, he always comes back. Some people thought that William died after the spring locking in FNAF 3's minigames, and some of us thought he died in the FNAF 3 fire, and the rest of us thought that he had died in the fire from Pizzeria Simulator, also known as FNAF 6, since we later see his soul in Hell and Ultimate Custom Night constantly being tortured by the one you should not have killed, Golden Freddy or Cassidy. But now he's alive again. At least his mind or soul is in the form of Glitch Trap, or I guess you would call it his essence? That sounds nasty. But he was also proven to be alive again thanks to the Fazbear Frights book Bunny Call and the story The Man in the Room 1280, where we see a man with horrible burns on his face and body and an iron will to live, where we learn that William is actually being kept alive by the spirit of a dead child that possessed him instead of an animatronic? What? That explains why he always comes back, and how he survived for 30 years trapped in a back room that was sealed off. Man, this series just gets simpler and simpler, doesn't it? Getting close to the end in a number 3, impossible. Actually, could this have even happened at all? Could Fredbear have crushed Crying Child's skull? It's a question that many have asked, and one that I've brought up on this channel as well. I seem to think that it shouldn't have been, assuming this was a regular animatronic and not a high-powered skull crushing machine, since it would take an insane amount of force, way higher than a normal animatronic would be able to generate to even crack the skull, not to mention crush it, as we are meant to believe this whole thing plays out. To cause that kind of damage, the animatronic would require pneumatic actuators that are industry grade and huge. They would take up way more space than any animatronic could reasonably fit inside, especially at that scale. Even if it was under the stage, we're meant to believe that these are spring lock suits that can change between suit and animatronic. And there is no way, if they were using those, anyone would be able to get in the suit, let alone be willing to. Seems pretty far-fetched to me, even for this series. Penultimately, in a number 2, Survivor. This may be a slight deviation, but what if Crying Child was going to survive? Like I just said, it's highly unlikely that Crying Child sustained real severe damage due to his head being crushed by this animatronic. However, if he still managed to wind up in the hospital, are we sure he wasn't going to make it out? Obviously, they would only suggest taking him off life support if they didn't think he'd recover, but it's possible that he still would. And we see Crying Child actively fighting to stay alive inside of his mind over the course of the 5 nights. And if Nightmare, our final boss, is meant to represent death, the thing we want to avoid, and we beat him, could we have made a recovery? We don't know, because we still die, because William pulls the plug on us, making us think that no matter how much it pained him, maybe he needed us gone. Maybe we saw something, like our sister getting scooped, or maybe we asked too many questions. But if we could survive Nightmare, maybe we could have survived death. Maybe we could have been spared. Maybe we could have been saved. And at 10, Henry's Mustard Man. The Mustard Man is one of the most confusing points of FNAF 6. This seemingly new character felt like William Afton, driving a purple car and living in a house with kids that we had established to be William's, but he wasn't purple. This led some to the conclusion that perhaps this was Henry, William's business partner and father to Charlotte, the one who goes on to possess the puppet. This caused us to think hard and look at different aspects of the series in a whole new way. If this was Henry, that would mean that the FNAF 4 house was Henry's, and that the security cameras in Sister Location's security room were of Henry's house, meaning either he put them there or William was spying on them. It would also mean that the FNAF 4 girls' room was Charlotte's and not Elizabeth's. It threw a wrench into everything we thought we knew about the series, and some still believe this theory to this day. And honestly, I don't know what to believe. I don't know if it's right or wrong. And at 9, Bite of 87. The Bite of 87 is like the center point of all FNAF confusion. This event was introduced in the first game and has never been explained fully. The absolute that this caused just made everything more difficult to put into place. Who caused the bite? Who got bit? Was it Mangle? Was it Fredbear? Did we see the bite in FNAF 4? Was it Jeremy who got bit? If so, why did he stick around with the company? Was Chica's Ultimate Custom Night line actually revealing the bite? We don't know the answers, but generally the consensus is that Mangle bit Jeremy prior to FNAF 2, and that's why we were hired in the game. But then FNAF 4 came along and a load of people assumed that Crying Child being chomped was the Bite of 87. However, as evidenced by the Fredbear and Friends cartoon on the TV and the secret password of 1983 in Sister Location, we know that Crying Child was bit in 1983 and not 1987, resulting in 2 separate bite instances. Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers, but hey, that's FNAF for you. And at 8, Mike Trap. This has got to be the most frustrating debate in all of FNAF lore. At the end of Sister Location, in the secret ending, Mike has a little speech about how he's supposed to be dead but he isn't, and that he's going to go find his father, who just so happens to be William Afton. But this debate comes at the end of the scene. Since Mike says, "I'm going to come find you," and then Springtrap pops out, because, you know, he's in the ruins of Fazbear Frights. This made people believe that this was actually Springtrap popping out, and that Springtrap was Mike. However, it was only to show that, you know, dear old dad hasn't moved on to the blood-soaked pastures, and that you lighting the on fire didn't actually do anything, because he was being kept alive by the soul of one of his victims. Yeah, the whole Mike Trap Club was disproven by Scott himself when he said in a post on Steam to look at MatPat's explanation for the whole debate. But yeah, some people still swear that they're two different individuals, which is absolutely absurd but definitely changed everything. And it's 7 generations. The Fredbear animatronic may have had multiple variations over the years, according to one theory posted by a deleted account on the FNAF subreddit. This theory proposed that there are in fact 3 different Fredbear animatronics that we've seen throughout the games. The first one being the one from FNAF 4 in Fredbear's Family Diner in 1983, another being the Golden Freddy animatronics from FNAF 1 and 2, and the third being Yendo from Sister Location. Yendo was always a strange animatronic. Some thought of him as Funtime Freddy's golden version, others thought it was a confirmation of the Foxy X Freddy oh, sorry, I meant ship. Others thought that it was just another bear animatronic that was never finished. This idea proposed that in fact it was meant to be the Sister Location Fredbear that was cancelled after Circus Babies closed. It is after all an incomplete animatronic, lacking casing over most of its body, only having facial features, so it could very well be an incomplete Funtime Fredbear. Since William did lose his son to the animatronic, it is possible that he also just couldn't bring himself to completing it. In its 6th, Stomach Mouth. The Stomach Mouths present on the Nightmare animatronics have been a matter of guesswork since FNAF 4's release. The Stomach Mouth is most visible on Fredbear and Nightmare, since it appears to be the main feature of the two. However, the only explanation that we have for this feature that makes sense is that Crying Child witnessed his sister get scooped by Baby, which as far as we know is the only animatronic to capture someone by opening up their stomach. It would also make sense given that she is his sister and he would probably be around her at the grand opening to Circus Baby's Pizza World. They probably went to get ice cream together, or maybe he was trying to warn her, saying that dad told us to stay away from Baby, but watching his sister get scooped would also explain the complicated relationship he has with these animatronics. He obviously loves them since he has all the plushies, but seeing his sister get scooped would definitely make him weary of animatronics in the future. I would definitely be terrified. I mean, I would also get my kicked because I let my sister get killed by an animatronic, but like, yeah. Halfway through in at number 5, Mommy. This is a bonkers theory that I'm certain isn't true, but it's still fun to talk about it anyway. You don't really have to believe every theory that you talk about. One Amino Apps user suggests that perhaps the psychic friend Fredbear plush isn't William's camera, but instead is possessed by their mother. It could actually make sense. If the plush was in the room when the mother died, whether William killed her or it was like a family car accident, the plush could be there. And since it's their child's favorite toy, the mother could also gravitate towards it. It would also explain why William would keep it in the office like we see in Sister Location, keeping it next to the cameras he was using to watch over his son in an attempt to keep him safe. He wouldn't want to get rid of it because it contains the soul of his former love. He would also keep it deep underground where memories sleep, to keep her close to her daughter, and another reason why he would send Michael down there in the first place, to see his sister and his mother. In at 4, Nightmare. While Nightmare is most likely meant to represent death, there are some other possibilities as well. Like, for example, that Nightmare is in fact Shadow Nightmare Fredbear. Since after all, the character is in essence a shadow, being dark in color and translucent like a shadow would be. It also relates to another theory that Crying Child is in fact Shadow Freddy from FNAF 2, meaning it could be the representation of what Crying Child would become after he caught him, or after just dying in general after being taken off life support, as we see at the end of the game. Or that Nightmare is meant to be the shadow of Nightmare Freddy instead of Nightmare Fredbear, since the shadow animatronics always seem to have more of a sinister appearance. Perhaps Nightmare is in fact Fredbear, and this is just a representation of what Crying Child had to deal with in the 8-bit minigames, playing out in his head as his body tries to understand his current situation. Like how they say your life flashes before your eyes the moments before you die, except it's playing out in a horrific form due to his situation and, you know, his fear of the animatronics. And ultimately, in at number 2, Michael Michael is Foxy Bro. Not only did everything change when we thought Crying Child was Michael Afton, but now we think that Michael is actually Crying Child's older brother, thanks to one simple line from Step Closer. The older brother in this story, who has an affiliation to Foxy, much like the older brother from FNAF 4, chews a lot of gum. This is pointed out multiple times. And Michael wrote in the survival logbook that if he could break one habit, it would be chewing gum excessively. However, this makes even less sense than him being a revived Crying Child, since how would this entirely separate character know about the nightmare animatronics that were created inside Crying Child's head right before he dies? He couldn't have told him because, you know, he was dead, and it's not like Michael would also dream about these animatronics that had stomach mouths, a feature that we presume was added because Crying Child saw Elizabeth get scooped. Why would that make any sense? It wouldn't, and that's the point. It's all one big kerfuffle that drives me absolutely insane. That's why I believe that Michael is a rebuilt Crying Child as his older brother, because, you know, it makes more sense, and I can't believe I have to say that. It makes more sense. Finally, in at number 1, Dream Theory. The most controversial FNAF fan theory of all time. The topic of Dream Theory came around when Scott started giving Matt, Pat, and other FNAF theorists hints during a live stream shortly after the release of FNAF 4. These hints included, in the FNAF 4 minigame, why would Toy Chica be missing her beak? What is seen in the shadows is often misunderstood in the mind of a child. And 4 games, 1 story. These hints led to the potential conclusion of the entire game series being a dream created by Crying Child as he lay dying on his hospital bed. That the real things we see in FNAF 4's 8-bit minigames resulted in the creation of some aspects we see in various games, like Toy Chica losing her beak when she goes on the attack in FNAF 2. And it also explained a whole load of different things like the hallucinations and everything that seemingly defied logic. Yet everyone hated the theory, so we stopped talking about it. But it certainly did change the way we looked at the FNAF series as a whole. So had to be included.